Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Elise, and this is my mystical bookshelf. And today I have part 2 of my Mage's Influence series. So I finished it. I had finished it a while ago, but I haven't had a chance to make videos yet, so here we are. And I want to say overall, the Mage's Influence is definitely a 4-star. It might even be a 4.5 star, but that's only because the last 2 books were really, really good. The last 2 books were made the whole thing worth it, in my opinion. So the first 2 were kind of boring, but it was mainly because they were setting the scene for everything. And the last 2 were really wrapping it up, and it was very adventure packed. And I really enjoyed how the relationships in this book were portrayed, because like I said in my synopsis of my channel, I read books through a Christian lens more often than not. That is something that is always in the forefront of my mind, is how does this align with what I believe in personally, and how can I articulate what I'm feeling through that lens. And the last 2 books were really a good portrayal of a good biblical portrayal of marriage. I really enjoyed Zeke and Cadence's relationship and how they grew together and grew to love one another, and I think they get married in the end. They do get married in the end. Yes, they do. Both Airly and Cadence get married in the end, so that's a big spoiler, so I'm sorry. But yeah, if you haven't read them yet, that's something that is a big spoiler. It's they both get married in the end, and it's really beautiful, and I love it so much. But so yeah. Each book in the series, though, was a 4, roughly. I think book 1 was the one that got me into it, and that was kind of a 3. It was a little bit slow, but towards the end, they always end on a cliffhanger, so I thought it was interesting in that respect. But book 1 was definitely a 3.5, because it was really setting the scene, and I enjoyed learning about Cadence and Airly. I enjoyed learning about their relationship. I liken their relationship a lot to Elsa and Anna. That's kind of how they felt. Anna was the one who didn't have any special powers, and Elsa was the one who had every power, all the power. And Airly was the one who had the power in the first book, and Cadence was the one who felt like she had an empty seed and didn't require activating, because she said her father had said this is of glory and ruin, and obviously Cadence was of ruin, and Airly was the glory because her seed was activated and she was super powerful in the beginning. But I talk about that a lot in my first video, and I wasn't really sure if I was gonna like it that much. I wasn't really sure if it would be worth 1 credit, but it was 4 books for 1 credit, so I figured why not give it a shot. But yeah, the other 3 books were definitely really good. The 3rd and the 4th book were especially good. And I love how Zeke and Cadence's relationship evolved and grew to be of biblical proportions, to me, in my opinion, because Zeke is constantly self-sacrificing for Cadence, and he loves her, and you can truly see that he loves her, like how Christ loves the church, and he's constantly sacrificing himself for Cadence and making sure that he protects her. And that's something that's really important in a marriage, is the husband protecting the wife. And I really think that Cadence did a good job with portraying how a good submissive wife is, because she really followed Zeke's direction a lot, and I thought it was very nice and interesting that she didn't get mad at him when he wanted to take charge. She kind of let him be the head of the relationship, which is something that's very important and something that I don't think is portrayed at all or not very accurately in most books nowadays. Like most books, it's like, oh, I am this strong female heroine and I don't need anybody. And like, that's fine. You can totally be strong, but don't like put other people down in the process. So that was really cool to see that Cadence wasn't like so stubborn and against Zeke, that she wasn't allowing him to lead. So I liked that she allowed him to lead, and she seemed like she was portraying how it is to be a good, submissive woman and a wife. And there were a few times when she did go against Zeke, but that ended badly because she didn't listen to him. Like there was one part where she was in danger and she wanted to go do something to save someone. There's a lot of saving in this book. There's a lot of like dire situations, and there's a lot of magic dynamics and royalty dynamics and stuff. So it was interesting to see. And Cadence wanted to put herself in danger to save one of her friends, I think, is what was going on. And Zeke was telling her, no, please don't do that. You're going to get yourself hurt. But Cadence didn't listen to him, went to go do it anyway, and she did end up getting hurt. So it was like, it was an interesting portrayal to see that something that she had felt she needed to do ended in Zeke being right in the end, and that she should have listened to him. And I think that's important too. It's important to know that a woman's husband, in this case, knows, not always better, but he knows what he's doing. And if he's a good, godly, righteous man, then what he's doing is for the good of the family and the good of the wife. And I think it was a good portrayal of how Cadence should have listened to him and shouldn't have gone off on her own devices to do something that was dangerous and that Zeke could have helped her with if she would have allowed him to. But she didn't and put herself in danger anyway. I just thought it was an interesting portrayal of that. And I really liked seeing that, especially because I feel like I said, nowadays books don't really portray like the traditional family sense, and it's more like it's all for me, all for one, none for all, stuff like that. But it was really cool, and I really enjoyed Zeke and Cadence's relationship, and I also enjoyed Airlie's relationship with, I can't remember his name. I really need to write these down, because I did make notes about like what I just talked about, but I didn't make a note of Airlie's relationship with her spouse, because she also gets married in the end. It kind of have like a Cadence gets married first, and then Airlie gets married after Cadence. And I can't remember this guy's name, but they also have a good relationship where I thought it was a good portrayal of how a husband and wife should act with one another, how the husband is the lead and the wife is more submissive. And I feel like people kind of make submissiveness to be a bad thing when really it's not a bad thing. It's just like being there for your husband but not being in charge. Like you can still, you're just as important as your husband, but it's just you're not the one in charge. And I thought that was a good take on it, because a lot of times I feel like women who are submissive in books are kind of looked down upon or frowned upon. And in this book, it seemed like there were strong women, but they were also submissive. And I think that's the most important part, is they were strong, but they didn't feel the need to be in charge. And I think that was the most important lesson that I understood from both of these relationships. And it was also interesting because in one of the side plots, Gia and her brother, Gia was supposed to be queen, but she didn't want to be. And she was okay with letting her brother step in and be the king, even though she was technically the heir because she was born first. I think they were twins, so she might have been born like maybe a couple seconds after her brother, or a couple seconds before her brother, but Yeah, so that was interesting too, seeing that Gia didn't want to be in charge, didn't want to be a queen. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a queen and stuff, but it just didn't, she felt like it didn't suit her. And I thought that was an interesting portrayal too, because Gia is just as strong as other women, but she doesn't want to be like a royal heir. But I don't think they ended up taking her brother as king, which I thought was interesting. They ended up taking the cousin, which is the one that Airly marries, as the king, which I also thought was weird. I didn't realize they were related. But in the book, it had said it was Gia, and then her brother, and then the cousin took the role of the king, and that would make Airly his queen. So I thought that was really cool. And then Cadence and Zeke ended up being king and queen of Callista, because they were the rightful heirs to that throne. So Zeke was the king and the rightful heir of the throne, and then he chose Cadence to be his queen. It's just really interesting seeing all these different dynamics between these couples. And Gia's brother, he did not take it well, to say the least. And I kind of don't blame him, because he had tried to show that he was willing to sacrifice for the kingdom, but I think they didn't give it to him because his intentions seemed sort of selfish, like he was doing it just to show that he was willing to do this, but his intentions weren't right in his heart. So I think it was good to end up giving the kingship to the cousin instead of him, Nicholas. Nicholas is the brother's name. So I think the council was right in giving the kingship to I can feel his name in the back of my mind, but I can't think of it right now. It's Airly, and I can't think of his name, but I think they were right. Evermond. See, I knew it was going to come. I knew it was going to come soon. Airly and Evermond. I think they were right to give it to Evermond, because Evermond had shown countless times that he was willing to put himself in danger for the kingdom to save Tortora. That's the name of the kingdom that Nicholas and Gia were supposed to reign over. I think he consistently showed that he was an upstanding man, willing and able to uphold the kingship and uphold the good name of Tortora. And because he was constantly there for Airly and the others, and he constantly put himself in that sacrificial position, like how Christ sacrificed for the church. And I also thought that was a good portrayal of, like, between the two men, they ended up choosing the one that was more deserving, and I thought that was really cool. But I also feel like I understand Nicholas's frustration, but I think in his heart he wasn't truly in it for wanting to protect the kingdom. I think he was in it for his own selfish values and wants and needs, and that's not something that a king should do and should be for a kingdom. It should be he puts himself last in favor of the place that he's ruling. So I feel like it was kind of his villain origin story, and I don't know if he's going to get a spin-off series or not, because I would love to see Nicholas's side of everything, because he was kind of snobby and snottish in this book, and like he kind of redeemed himself a little bit, but not by much. I didn't really like him through most of the book, so I was glad that he didn't end up being king, but I could also understand his frustrations, because this is something that he really did want with his whole heart, but I don't think his intentions were truly what the kingdom needed to be a good ruler. I think Evermond had the more noble intentions of being king. So I was glad that they gave it to Evermond in the end. And so these books were just really interesting. I loved all the dynamics between all the characters. I loved the relationships. I loved seeing Cadence grow as a woman and grow into her role as being Zeke's queen and wife. And I enjoyed watching Zeke grow into his role of being king and his role of being the protector and husband of Cadence, because he has a really good relationship with Cadence. And I know that I've seen people on Goodreads say that it seems unrealistic because Cadence hadn't really met anyone else, but sometimes you don't need to. You don't need to date like a whole bunch of people to understand that this person should be your spouse. Like, it's okay to be like, I have grown in friendship with this one person, this one man, and I want him to be my spouse. And it's okay to decide on that. You don't need to go through a bunch of other men, other people, to decide if you want someone to be your husband. I thought that was kind of a weird take to have on Goodreads, because I was like, it's not really that unrealistic to like see one man in the crowd of people in this kingdom and be like, wow, I really like him. And it was kind of like love at first sight for Cadence, and I don't think that's uncommon or unrealistic for someone like Cadence. I thought it was really sweet, actually, that she had seen Zeke and understood that she felt a connection with him for whatever reason. And I liked watching them grow as a couple. So I don't understand that take necessarily. And I really enjoyed Airly and how she grew in her relationship with Evermond. And I also liked how she grew in her relationship with Cadence and realized that she didn't need to protect Cadence anymore, that Zeke was the one who was like the guardian over her now. Because I think in like the second or third book, Airly was like, well, I don't trust Zeke, and he can't protect you like I can protect you. But in the end, she realized that Zeke can protect Cadence and does protect Cadence better than her. And that Airly realized that she doesn't need to do the protecting, and that Evermond is the one who is protecting her now and being her spouse. And it just was interesting to see them all grow together in their friendships and relationships with one another. It was just really cute. And overall, like, all the books are like either 3.5 or a 4-star, but I think the series as a whole, like, all of it is a 5-star to me, like, after all the ratios and stuff. Yeah, I really enjoyed reading Mage's Influence. It was great world building, it was great characters, I loved all the relationships and friendships, and it was a nice balance between romantic relationships and friendships, between the women and the men, and like the men became friends with one another, and all the women became friends with one another, and it was interesting to see everyone have this really great, they had romantic relationships, and they also had really important friendships too. I think that was the best part for me. It was like all the characters together being like cohesive and stuff. But yeah, I would totally recommend it. If you love fantasy and you love world building, I would totally recommend Mage's Influence, because it was really good. And that's all I have to say on the matter. So I thank you for watching. I enjoyed making this video. And if you have read Mage's Influence, please let me know in the comments. And please like and subscribe and follow me on Instagram if you would like more content from me. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, friends!